this lesson, we are going to talk about overtime pay. So most times that you have a job, you will have a set number of hours per week that you work. So the standard is generally 40 hours per week or 8 hours per day. And if you work more than that number of hours, it would be considered overtime, and you would earn extra money for those hours worked. Most often, overtime is paid as either time and a half or double time. So what that means is that if you worked, for example, for 4 hours of overtime, but you earned double time, you would actually be paid for 8 hours. Okay? If you were working time and a half, you would earn 1.5 times that number of hours. So, if we are calculating this overtime, it comes in a few steps. There's a few steps required. The first step is going to be to calculate your regular pay. So you calculate that the same way that you calculated your hourly income from the very first lesson in this unit. You multiply your hours times your wage. Then you need to calculate your overtime pay. And with your overtime pay, you're going to have your overtime hours multiplied by your wage, but then multiplied by your overtime rate, which is generally either 1.5 or 2, time and a half or double time. Then you would add those two together. So it takes a couple steps to calculate your total income when overtime pay is involved. So if we look at example 1, it says your workplace demands that you put in many hours and pays $10.25 per hour. However, they will pay you time and a half for any hours over 40 hours per week. Here is the record of the hours you worked each day. Calculate your total pay. So again, the first thing that you're going to do is calculate your regular pay. So to calculate your regular pay, you need to know how many hours you worked and multiply it by your hourly wage. Now, because this is broken down by day, just on the side here, I'm going to figure out how many hours total this person worked. So I'm going to add them all together. And let's see how many hours that is. So 6 plus 10 plus 8 plus 8 plus 9 plus 4 plus 4 is a total of 49 hours. So if you worked 49 hours in the week, and it says you get paid overtime for anything over 40. That means your regular hours are 40 and your overtime hours are 9. You've got 9 additional hours. So 40 hours times your regular income, regular wage, so times $10.25, is $410 in regular pay. Then we know we've got 9 hours of overtime. So your overtime pay is the overtime hours, so 9 hours, times your hourly wage, so $10.25, times your overtime rate. And your overtime rate in this case is time and a half, so that's 1.5. And when you multiply all those together, it equals $138.38. That is your overtime pay. And then to get the total, you're just going to add those two amounts together. So 410 plus 138.38, which gives you $548.38. That would be your total pay. If we look at the next example, it says Marcel works for a construction company and earns $15.82 an hour for a 37.5-hour work week. He is paid double time for any time that he works in excess of 37.5 hours. If he works 40 1/4 hours during 1 week, how much will he earn? So again, you're going to calculate your regular pay, then you're going to calculate your overtime pay, and then find the total. Now what I would do in this case is turn 37.5 into a decimal, so 37.5, and 40 1/4 is 40.25. Remember, you can divide 1 by 4 to get 0.25. Now, we're going to calculate our regular pay, which is 37.5 hours, times the hourly wage, $15.82, which gives us $593.25. In regular pay. Then I need to calculate the overtime. Now in the last question we were working with whole numbers. We had 49 hours, and it was easy to do the subtraction to figure out that it was 9 hours of overtime. If it's not as intuitive to look at it and know the difference and how much overtime there is, remember, you would just use subtraction. So for overtime, this person worked 40.25, and when we take away their regular hours, we're left with the overtime of 2 hours and 45 minutes, or 2.75 hours. So that's the number of hours of overtime. So we're going to take 2.75 times the hourly wage times the overtime rate, which in this case is double time, so times 2. And when you do that, you get $94.92. And then your final step is always to calculate the total. So we're going to add $593.25 plus $94.92, and it gives us a total pay of $688.17. Now, in example 3, it says your employer pays you time and a half for any time worked over 8 hours per day from Monday to Friday, and all hours worked on Saturday. Your regular wage is $11.85 per hour, and you worked the following hours. So again, our first step is to calculate regular pay, then overtime, and then the total. Before we do that, we need to look, because again we have a little time card here, we need to calculate the total hours worked. So it says that you earn time and a half for any time worked over 8 hours per day. So if we look at Monday, I'm just going to make a little table. So regular hours and overtime hours. And if we notice, on Monday, I'm going to go day by day. So on Monday, we've got 9.25 hours. So 8 hours of that is regular, because it said 8 hours per day is regular, but anything above that is overtime. So 1.25 hours would be overtime. On Tuesday, we worked 8 hours, so that's just regular pay. On Wednesday, 8 hours would be regular, but there's 2 hours of overtime to make a total of 10. On Thursday, it's only 5 hours, and Friday's only 5 hours, and then all hours on Saturdays are overtime. So the 3 hours on Saturday are overtime. This just allows you to organize to calculate your total for all of these. So the total regular hours is 34 when I add these up, and my total overtime is 6.25 hours. Now that I know that, I can go ahead and do the calculations. So my regular pay is 34 hours times my hourly wage, $11.85, which is $402.90. My overtime pay is 6.25 hours times my hourly wage times the overtime rate, which was time and a half, which is 1.5, which gives me a total of $111.09. And then the last step is to add those together to get the total. 402.90 plus 111.09. So the total pay is $513.99. The key when calculating overtime pay is keeping your work nice and organized. There's a lot of steps, and you want to make sure that you keep everything organized with what's regular pay and what's overtime pay. That way at the end you just have to add them together.